The interview had gone poorly, worse than poorly, and now Diana Thorne stood on the rain-soaked sidewalk with her son's empty lunchbox weighing down her purse like an accusation. She had exactly $17 left until next week, no job prospects, and a 4-year-old boy waiting at her neighbor's apartment who would ask her tonight, with those wide, trusting eyes, if they could have chicken nuggets for dinner. She couldn't give him chicken nuggets. She could barely give him pasta. Diana pulled her threadbare coat tighter and started walking, not toward home, but deeper into the city's old quarter, where the buildings leaned together like gossiping old women and the streetlights flickered with voltage that never quite steadied. She had heard rumors the kind desperate people whispered in food bank lines about the old Nightshade Estate on Crescent Hill. They said the owner was eccentric, wealthy beyond measure, and sometimes hired people off the street without asking questions. They also said he was dangerous, that people who went up there sometimes didn't come back. But Diana was past the point of caring about urban legends. She cared about keeping a roof over Jamie's head. The estate's gates appeared suddenly as she rounded a corner, wrought iron twisted into patterns that seemed to shift in her peripheral vision. A name was worked into the metal in letters that looked like they had been forged centuries ago. Nightshade. No intercom, no security camera that she could see, but when she reached for the gate, it swung open with a whisper of well-oiled hinges. The driveway stretched longer than seemed possible, lined with trees that still held their leaves despite the late autumn chill. The house itself, no. The mansion, the palace, rose against the darkening sky like something out of a Gothic romance, all stone and stained glass and towers that pierced the clouds. Diana's steps faltered. This was insane. She should turn around. She should go home and figure out another way, but there wasn't another way, not anymore. She climbed the steps to the massive front door and raised her hand to knock, but the door opened before her knuckles made contact. The man standing there made her breath catch in her throat. He was tall, inhumanly so, dressed in a black suit that looked like it cost more than her entire year's rent. His skin was pale as moonlight, his hair white silver and pulled back from a face that belonged in a museum, beautiful and terrible and ageless. His eyes were the color of blood in water, deep crimson that seemed to glow in the dimness of the entrance hall behind him. "You're here for work," he said, not a question. His voice was like velvet dragged over broken glass. Diana's mouth had gone dry. Yes, I heard you might be hiring. I can clean, I can cook, I can do bookkeeping or administrative work. I'm a fast learner and I'll work any hours you need. She hated how her voice cracked. I need a job, please. I have a son and I need to provide for him. Something flickered across that perfect, terrible face. He studied her for a long moment, and Diana had the unsettling sensation of being dissected, of having every secret laid bare beneath that crimson gaze. "Come inside," he said finally, stepping back. The entrance hall alone was larger than her entire apartment. Marble floors gleamed beneath chandeliers that dripped crystal like frozen tears. Paintings lined the walls, old masters, she thought, originals that belonged in museums. The air smelled of old wood and something else, something sweet and copper, tinged that made her stomach tighten with instinctive unease. "What's your name?" he asked, leading her deeper into the house. "Diana Thorne." "Diana." He said it like he was tasting it. "I am Hadrian Nightshade. This is my estate, my territory, my domain. If you work here, you will see things that defy the understanding you have built your world upon. You will learn secrets that would break most people. But you came here anyway, despite the rumors, despite your fear. Why?" They had reached what appeared to be a study, all dark wood and leather-bound books and a fireplace large enough to stand in. Hadrian turned to face her, and the firelight painted shadows across his features that made him look even less human. Diana met his eyes. She had nothing left to lose. "Because I'm 3 weeks behind on rent, because my son ate cereal for dinner last night and toast for breakfast this morning, and that's all I could give him. Because I've applied to 47 jobs in the last month, and no one will hire a single mother with a spotty work history who has to leave early for daycare pickup. Because I'm desperate, Mr. Nightshade, and desperate people don't have the luxury of listening to rumors." Silence filled the study. The fire crackled. Outside, rain began to fall in earnest, drumming against the windows. Then Hadrian smiled, and Diana saw the fangs. She should have screamed, should have run, but her legs wouldn't move, And somewhere beneath the terror flooding her system was a strange sense of inevitability. Of course. Of course the man in the haunted mansion was a monster. Of course. "You don't scream," Hadrian observed, tilting his head slightly. "Interesting." "Would screaming help?" Diana asked. Her voice sounded distant to her own ears. "No." "Then I won't waste the energy." She swallowed hard. "Are you going to kill me?" "That depends." He moved closer, circling her slowly. "Can you keep secrets, Diana Thorne? Can you be loyal? Can you follow rules that will seem arbitrary and strange?" "If the rules come with a paycheck that clears, I can follow anything." He laughed, a sound like dark wine. "I need someone to manage this estate. The previous manager moved on. The position involves overseeing the household staff, maintaining the grounds, managing my schedule, and ensuring that certain security protocols are followed to the letter. The security protocols are not negotiable. Break them, and our arrangement ends immediately." "What kind of security protocols?" "The kind that keep you alive." He stopped in front of her, close enough that she could see her reflection in those crimson eyes. "I am a vampire, Diana. The king of the vampire court of the Eastern Territories, to be precise. This estate sits on the border between your human world and mine. What walks these halls at night is not always friendly to humankind. You would be surrounded by predators who view your species as food. But you would also be under my protection, and no one in this world or the next would dare touch what is mine." The possessiveness in that last word sent something hot and terrifying down Diana's spine. "How much does it pay?" she asked. Hadrian's smile widened. 10,000 a month, plus room and board if you choose to live on the estate. Full health insurance for you and your son, private education arranged if desired." Diana's knees nearly buckled. $10,000. She currently made less than that in 3 months. "What's the catch?" "The catch is that you can never speak of what you see here. The catch is that vampires are real, magic is real, and the world you thought you knew is a thin veneer over something much older and darker. The catch is that your life will never be ordinary again." He paused. "And the catch is that you will belong to me, in the way all my people belong to me. Under my protection, yes, but also under my authority. When I give you an order, you will obey it. When I tell you to run, you run. When I tell you to hide, you hide. Your life will be mine to safeguard or spend as I see fit." It should have sounded like slavery. It should have sent her running. But Diana thought of Jamie's face when she'd told him they couldn't afford his school field trip, thought of the eviction notice tucked in her purse, thought of the long, cold nights ahead with no heat because she'd had to choose between utilities and food. "I accept," she said. Hadrian's expression shifted into something she couldn't read. "Just like that?" "Just like that." "When do I start?" "Tomorrow night. I'll have my lawyer draw up a contract and I'll send a car for your things. Bring your son. There are rooms in the East Wing that will suit you both." He walked to the desk and pulled out a thick envelope. "Consider this in advance, first month's salary." Diana took it with shaking hands. The envelope was heavy with bills. "I don't understand. You don't know anything about me. I could be terrible at this job. I could steal from you." "You won't." He said it with absolute certainty. "I'm very old, Diana, and I have learned to read people the way you might read a book. You are desperate, yes, but you are also honest, fierce. You would burn the world down for your child, and that kind of love is rare, precious." Something ancient and sad moved through his eyes. "I find myself in need of someone I can trust, someone who values loyalty the way you clearly do, and someone who has enough to lose that they will think twice before betraying me." "Is that a threat?" "It's a statement of fact. I'm not a good man, Diana. I'm not a man at all, not anymore. I have lived for 800 years, and I have done things that would haunt your nightmares. But I keep my word, and I protect what is mine with absolute ferocity. Work for me, and you and your son will want for nothing. Cross me and—" He left the sentence unfinished. Diana clutched the envelope to her chest. "I understand." "Good. The car will arrive at your residence at sunset tomorrow. Be ready." He turned away, dismissing her, then paused. "Diana?" "Yes?" "Welcome to the Nightshade Estate. Try not to die." The next 24 hours passed in a blur. Diana spent the night packing their meager belongings, paying her landlord the back rent with cash that made his eyes bulge, and trying to explain to Jamie that they were moving to a new house, a very big house, with a new job for Mommy. "Will there be a yard?" Jamie asked, clutching his stuffed dinosaur. "Can I play outside?" "Maybe," Diana said, because she didn't actually know the answer. "We'll have to ask Mr. Nightshade." "Is he nice?" Diana thought of crimson eyes and impossible beauty and the casual way Hadrian had spoken about spending her life. "He's complicated, but I think we'll be safe there, safer than here." Jamie accepted this with the resilience of a 4-year-old who had already learned that life was unpredictable and you just had to roll with it. Diana wished she had his adaptability. The car arrived exactly at sunset, a sleek black town car with a driver who didn't speak, but helped load their possessions with mechanical efficiency. Jamie fell asleep during the drive, curled against Diana's side, and she stroked his dark curls and wondered what the hell she had gotten them into. The gates opened automatically this time. The estate looked different at night, illuminated by lights that cast everything in shades of silver and shadow. The driver pulled up to the front entrance where Hadrian waited, still dressed in black, still impossibly beautiful in the moonlight. He descended the steps as Diana emerged from the car, Jamie heavy in her arms. "Your son," Hadrian said softly. Something in his expression gentled as he looked at the sleeping child. "He has your eyes." "He has my stubborn streak too," Diana said. "Fair warning." "I would expect nothing less." Hadrian gestured toward the door. "Come, I'll show you to your rooms." The East Wing was its own self-contained apartment. 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, a kitchenette, and a living area with furniture that looked antique and expensive. Someone had already stocked the kitchen with food, real food, fresh fruit and vegetables, and meat and milk. Diana felt tears prick her eyes. "The master bedroom is yours," Hadrian said, keeping his voice low so as not to wake Jamie. "The bedroom across the hall has been prepared for your son. I took the liberty of adding some toys and books. If the selection isn't to his taste, inform me, and I'll have it corrected." Diana carried Jamie to the smaller bedroom and stopped in the doorway. It looked like something from a magazine, a beautiful bed shaped like a castle, shelves full of books and toys, a rocking horse in the corner, even a child-sized table with art supplies. "You did all this today?" "I have efficient staff." Hadrian watched as she laid Jamie down and pulled the covers over him. "He's very young. 4. His birthday was last month." She kissed Jamie's forehead and followed Hadrian back out, pulling the door nearly closed behind her. "Thank you for this. For all of this. I still don't understand why, but thank you." "You will begin your duties tomorrow evening," Hadrian said instead of addressing her thanks. "I've left a full briefing on your desk in the study down the hall. The rules I mentioned are listed there. Read them carefully. Your life depends on it." "My life and Jamie's." His eyes flashed. "Your son is under my protection now. No harm will come to him within these walls. I give you my word, and a vampire's word is binding in ways you cannot yet comprehend. But you must follow the rules, Diana. All of them. Do you understand?" "I understand." He studied her for a long moment, then nodded. "Sleep. Tomorrow night, your new life begins." He left like smoke, there one moment and gone the next, and Diana was alone in the most beautiful prison she'd ever seen. The rules, she discovered when she finally read through the briefing at 2 in the morning, were extensive and bizarre. Never enter the West Wing between midnight and dawn. Never accept food or drink from anyone except Hadrian or the head chef, Marcus. Never invite anyone into the estate without explicit permission. Never, under any circumstances, open the door in the basement with the silver lock. Keep Jamie within the East Wing and the main gardens during daylight hours. After dark, keep him within the East Wing only unless accompanied by Hadrian personally. There were 24 more rules, each one weirder than the last, and a section on vampire etiquette that read like something from a medieval court. Diana read it all twice, took notes, and finally collapsed into bed as the sun was rising. She woke to Jamie bouncing on her bed, announcing that he'd found the toys, and also there was a scary, pretty man making pancakes in the kitchen. Diana bolted upright and ran to the kitchenette where a man stood at the stove, flipping pancakes with expert precision. He was almost as pale as Hadrian, with golden eyes and dark hair pulled into a neat ponytail. He smiled when he saw her, revealing slightly pointed canines. "Good morning," he said cheerfully. "I'm Marcus, head chef and unofficial welcome committee. You must be Diana, and this brilliant young man told me his name is Jamie." "I helped," Jamie announced proudly. "You absolutely did," Marcus agreed. He slid a plate of perfect pancakes onto the counter. "Hadrian wanted to make sure you had a proper breakfast. He's very particular about his people being well fed." "You're a vampire," Diana said. "Half vampire, actually. Human mother, vampire father. I can tolerate sunlight, which makes me infinitely useful for daytime operations." Marcus poured orange juice into 2 glasses. "I imagine all this is overwhelming, but you'll adjust faster than you think. We're strange, but we're not monsters." "Well, most of us aren't." Jamie tugged on Diana's sleeve. "Mommy, can I have pancakes?" "Yes, baby, of course." She lifted him onto a stool and pushed the plate toward him, her mind still reeling. "How many vampires live here?" "In the main estate? 6, including Hadrian, but the property is large, and the territory includes several other residences. All told, about 30 vampires answer to Hadrian directly. Then there are the staff most human, some half-bloods like me. You'll meet everyone gradually, no need to rush." "And they all drink blood?" "Yes, but we have suppliers, donors who are compensated generously. No one here hunts unwilling prey. Hadrian's law." Marcus began cleaning up the kitchen with efficient movements. "He's actually very progressive for a vampire king. Most of the old ones still think humans are cattle. Hadrian sees you as people. It's one of the reasons his court is so stable." Diana processed this while Jamie demolished his pancakes. "What happened to the last estate manager?" Marcus's expression shuddered slightly. "She fell in love with one of the court vampires. They moved to the Western Territories together. It was all very romantic and completely against protocol, but Hadrian allowed it because he's got a soft spot under all that ancient kingly authority." "Vampires can love?" "Of course we can love. We're not dead, just different." Marcus smiled at Jamie, who was wearing an orange juice mustache. "We feel everything humans feel, just amplified by centuries of existence. It makes us passionate, possessive, and occasionally dramatic. You'll see." A soft knock sounded at the door. Marcus called out permission to enter, and a young woman appeared, human, Diana noted with relief, with warm brown skin and her hair in neat braids. "Mr. Nightshade requests Ms. Thorne's presence in the main study at her earliest convenience." "Thank you, Letitia." Marcus looked at Diana. "Go ahead, I'll watch Jamie. We're going to make cookies." "Really?" Jamie's face lit up. Diana hesitated, every maternal instinct screaming not to leave her son with strangers, vampire strangers, in a house full of predators. But Hadrian had given his word, and for some inexplicable reason, she believed he would keep it. "Behave for Marcus," she told Jamie, kissing the top of his head. "I'll be back soon." The main study looked different in daylight streaming through the tall windows. Hadrian stood with his back to her, staring out at the grounds, and for a moment Diana thought perhaps vampires could tolerate sunlight after all. Then she noticed he was careful to stay just out of the direct light in a shadow cast by the window frame. "You wanted to see me?" she said. He turned. In the diffused daylight he looked even more otherworldly, his features too perfect to be real. "How did you sleep?" "Like the dead." She winced at her own word choice. "Sorry. That was accurate?" A hint of humor touched his mouth. "I'm not offended. Tell me, have you read the rules?" "Yes, 3 times. And do you have questions?" "About 1,000. But the most important one is why. Why all these specific precautions? What exactly lives here that I need to be protected from?" Hadrian gestured for her to sit. She took one of the leather chairs and he settled into the one across from her, moving with that inhuman grace. "This estate is not merely my home. It's a neutral ground, a place where the various vampire courts can meet without triggering territorial disputes. I host visiting nobility, broker peace treaties, and occasionally shelter those fleeing persecution. Some of my guests are civilized, some are ancient and dangerous and barely remember what it means to be anything other than a predator. And you want me to manage them? I want you to manage the estate while I manage them. You will keep the house running smoothly, coordinate with the staff, and ensure that when I need something, it happens immediately and correctly. In return, you and your son will live in safety and comfort. But the rules exist because one mistake, one wrong door opened or wrong hallway entered, could end with you dead or worse. Worse than dead. His expression darkened. There are things in my world that would find a human woman an entertaining diversion, things that would use you and break you and leave you wishing for death. I will not allow that to happen to anyone under my protection, but you must help me protect you, Diana. You must be smart and careful and trust that I know the dangers better than you do. The intensity in his voice sent shivers through her. I understand. I hope you do. He leaned forward, his crimson eyes holding hers. You're not a servant here. You're not cattle. You're mine, my employee, my responsibility under my direct protection. That means something in vampire society. It means anyone who harms you answers to me, and I am not known for mercy toward those who disrespect what belongs to me. There was that possessiveness again, wrapping around her like a physical touch. Diana's pulse quickened. I'll follow the rules, I promise. Good. He stood, and she realized the meeting was over. There's a court dinner tonight. Visiting nobility from the southern territories. I need you to oversee the preparations. Marcus will help you. Formal dress, I've taken the liberty of providing appropriate attire. It's in your closet. You want me at the dinner? I want you visible. I want my court to see that I have a new estate manager and that she is under my personal protection. It will prevent misunderstandings. Diana rose on shaky legs. Should I be terrified right now? Yes, Hadrian said bluntly. But you walked through my gates despite your terror, and you'll walk into that dining room the same way. You're stronger than you know. Diana Thorne. I saw it the moment you stood in the study and told me you were desperate. Desperation requires strength. Survival requires courage. You have both. His words warmed something in her chest that had been cold for a very long time. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. The night is long and full of teeth. The dress in her closet was midnight blue silk that fit like it had been made for her, which it probably had been, given vampire efficiency. Diana stared at herself in the mirror and barely recognized the woman looking back. When was the last time she'd worn something beautiful? When was the last time she'd felt beautiful? Jamie was already asleep, worn out from an afternoon of cookie-making and playing in the gardens under Marcus's watchful eye. Diana had tucked him in and triple-checked the locks on the east wing doors before retreating to dress for dinner. Now, she made her way down to the formal dining room, following the sounds of conversation and the clink of crystal. The room was enormous, dominated by a table that could seat 40. Tonight it hosted a dozen vampires, all of them dressed in clothes that ranged from elegantly modern to historically anachronistic. They turned as one when she entered, and Diana felt the weight of their attention like a physical thing. Hadrian appeared at her elbow instantly. Gentlemen, ladies, may I present Diana Thorne, my new estate manager. A woman with ice-blonde hair and violet eyes smiled, revealing delicate fangs. How delightful. She's lovely, Hadrian. Wherever did you find her? She found me, Hadrian said. His hand settled on the small of Diana's back, a possessive touch that made several of the vampires exchange knowing looks. Diana, this is Lady Seraphine of the Southern Court and her companions. The introductions blurred together. Lord this and Lady that, names that sounded old and foreign, faces that were too beautiful, and eyes that held too much hunger. Diana smiled and nodded, and tried not to think about the fact that everyone in this room could kill her without effort. Dinner was a strange affair. The vampires were served dark wine in crystal goblets, wine that Diana strongly suspected wasn't wine at all. She and two other humans at the table received actual food, prepared by Marcus and served by silent staff who moved like shadows. The conversation ranged from politics to art to gossip about vampire courts in distant cities. Diana stayed quiet, observing, noting the power dynamics and the careful way the visiting nobles treated Hadrian with deference, just shy of fear. Tell me, Miss Thorne, Lord Cassius, a dark-haired vampire with silver eyes, said suddenly. "Are you not afraid dining with monsters?" The table went silent. Hadrian's expression didn't change, but Diana felt the temperature in the room drop. She met Cassius's gaze steadily. "I've been afraid every day for the last 2 years, my lord. Afraid of eviction, of hunger, of failing my son. Monsters come in many forms. At least here, the monsters are honest about what they are." Several vampires laughed. Seraphine raised her goblet in salute. "Oh, I like her. Clever little thing." "She is under my protection," Hadrian said quietly, "and she is not a thing." The warning in his voice was unmistakable. Seraphine inclined her head. "Of course. My apologies, Miss Thorne. No disrespect intended." The rest of the dinner passed without incident, but Diana was exhausted by the time the nobles finally retired to the drawing room for after-dinner drinks. She helped oversee the staff clearing the table, checking details with the efficiency of someone who'd worked food service before, and was about to retreat to the east wing when Hadrian caught her arm. "Walk with me," he said. It wasn't a request. They walked through the mansion in silence, past rooms Diana hadn't yet explored, until they reached a set of glass doors that opened onto a terrace overlooking the gardens. The moon was full, painting everything in silver, and the night air was cold and clean. "You did well tonight," Hadrian said. "Cassius was testing you. If you'd shown fear, he would have pushed until you broke." "I was afraid," Diana admitted. "I'm still afraid. But you didn't let it control you. That's the difference between survival and surrender." He leaned against the terrace railing, his white hair catching the moonlight. "In my world, fear is a tool. Show it, and predators will use it to manipulate you. Control it, and you control how others perceive your strength." Diana joined him at the railing, staring out at the grounds. "Is that how you've survived 800 years? Control? Control, power, and an absolute unwillingness to let anyone take from me what's mine." He glanced at her. "You asked me yesterday why I hired you. The truth is more complicated than I admitted." "Tell me." "I'm tired," Hadrian said softly. 8 centuries of playing political games, of maintaining alliances, of being the strong king who never falters. I'm tired of being surrounded by people who want something from me. Power, favor, blood. When you stood in my study and told me you needed to feed your son, you wanted nothing from me but honest work. Do you know how rare that is? How precious?" Diana's heart ached at the loneliness in his voice. "You're more human than you think." Perhaps I've simply lived long enough to remember what being human felt like." He turned to face her fully. "I meant what I said about protection, Diana. You and your son are safe here. I will make sure of it. Why does it matter so much to you? Because 800 years ago, I couldn't protect the people I loved. I was newly turned, still learning what I'd become, and humans I cared about paid the price for my weakness. I've spent centuries making sure I'm never weak again, never unable to protect what's mine." The weight of that confession hung between them. Diana reached out hesitantly and touched his hand where it rested on the railing. His skin was cool but not cold, not dead, just different. "Thank you," she said, "for giving us a chance." Hadrian's fingers closed around hers, gentle but firm. "Thank you for taking it." The days fell into a rhythm. Diana woke early, managed the household staff, coordinated repairs and supplies, and the endless logistics of running an estate that was part mansion, part fortress, part diplomatic embassy. She learned the names of the resident vampires, Lady Elise, who loved music and had once been a composer at the French court, Lord Victor, who was gruff and ancient and treated Diana with surprising gentleness, Catalina, who was young by vampire standards and delighted in teaching Jamie about the gardens. Jamie thrived. He had space to run, food to eat, and a parade of supernatural beings who spoiled him shamelessly. Marcus taught him to bake. Elise played piano while Jamie danced. Victor carved him a wooden sword and taught him the basics of fencing with a patience that shocked everyone. And Hadrian. Hadrian was always there, a constant presence in Diana's awareness. He would appear in the kitchen while she was reviewing menus, offering opinions on wine pairings. He would find her in the library late at night when she couldn't sleep, and they would talk for hours about everything and nothing. He attended every dinner where outside nobles visited, and Diana stood at his side, learning vampire politics through immersion. She watched the way other vampires deferred to him, the weight of authority he carried so easily. She saw the loneliness beneath his power, the isolation of being a king who could never afford to show weakness. And slowly, terrifyingly, she felt herself falling. It was insane. He was a vampire, an ancient predator, a being who had lived centuries before she was born. But when he looked at her with those crimson eyes, when he smiled at something Jamie said, when he stood close enough that she could feel the coolness of his presence, Diana felt something warm and desperate bloom in her chest. She tried to ignore it. She was his employee. She was human. This was a job, a means of survival, not a fairy tale. But then came the night everything changed. Diana woke to screaming. Not Jamie, she knew her son's voice, and this was someone else, high and terrified and cut off suddenly. She bolted from bed, grabbed her robe, and ran for Jamie's room. He was still asleep, thank God, undisturbed by whatever was happening. She locked his door from the outside and ran toward the sound, breaking at least 3 of Hadrian's rules in the process. The screaming had come from the main hall, and when Diana reached it, she stopped cold. Blood. So much blood. A young woman, one of the human maids, Diana recognized her, lay on the marble floor, her throat torn open. Standing over her was a vampire Diana had never seen before, his face twisted into something monstrous, blood dripping from his fangs. "Well," the vampire said, noticing Diana, "dessert has arrived." He moved faster than thought, but he never reached her. Hadrian materialized between them, moving with such speed he was just a blur. The crack of impact echoed through the hall as Hadrian's hand closed around the other vampire's throat. "You dare!" Hadrian said, and his voice was winter and death and absolute fury. "You dare hunt in my house, you dare touch my people." "She was just a human," the vampire choked out. "Just food." Hadrian's hand tightened and Diana heard bone crack. "She was mine, under my protection, my law." He looked past the struggling vampire to where Diana stood frozen. "Diana, go back to your rooms, now." She couldn't move, couldn't look away from the dead girl on the floor, from the blood, from the terrible truth of what vampires really were beneath the beautiful faces and courtly manners. "Diana," Hadrian's voice cracked like a whip, "go." This time she ran back to the east wing, checked on Jamie again, and locked herself in her bedroom with shaking hands. She heard noises from the main hall shouting, the sounds of a struggle. Then silence. Terrible silence. She didn't know how much time passed before the soft knock came at her door. "Diana, it's me. Let me in." Hadrian's voice, quiet, tired. She opened the door. He stood there in the hallway, his clothes spattered with blood, his face weary. "I'm sorry you saw that. The girl, the maid, is she dead? I'm sorry, he killed her before I could stop him. And the vampire? Dead as well. I executed him for breaking my law, for hunting on my territory without permission, for touching what was mine." Hadrian's eyes met hers. "I would have killed him anyway. But when he moved toward you, when I thought he might hurt you..." He stopped, visibly gathering control. "I lost myself for a moment. That hasn't happened in a very long time." Diana's hands were still shaking. "You saved my life. I nearly got you killed by not anticipating this. He was a rogue from the northern territories, fleeing some crime. He must have slipped onto the grounds and hidden, waiting for an opportunity. I should have detected him, should have..." He stopped again, frustration and anger radiating from him. "You can't protect everyone from everything," Diana said quietly. "You're not a god, Hadrian, just a very old vampire doing his best. My best got a girl killed tonight. And saved dozens of others, saved me, saved Jamie." She reached out and took his hand, not caring about the blood. "You can't carry this alone." Something broke in his expression. He pulled her forward suddenly, wrapping his arms around her, and Diana let herself be held. He was cool and solid, and she could hear no heartbeat when she pressed her ear to his chest, but she felt safe anyway. Protected. "I can't lose you," Hadrian whispered into her hair. "I can't. Diana, He stopped himself, pulled back, put careful distance between them. "You should rest," he said formally. "It's been a difficult night." But Diana saw what he wouldn't say reflected in his eyes, and her own heart answered with a truth she couldn't deny anymore. She was in love with a vampire king, and from the tortured look on his face, he felt something for her too. It was impossible. It was terrifying. It was happening anyway. The next few days were tense. The dead maid was given a proper burial, her family compensated generously. Hadrian tripled security on the estate and personally walked the grounds each night, hunting for any other intruders. He was distant with Diana, professional, keeping careful space between them. It hurt worse than it should have. "He's afraid," Marcus said one afternoon while they prepared tea. Jamie was napping, and Diana had sought out the chef for company and distraction. "I've never seen him like this, not in the 50 years I've worked for him." "Like what?" "Vulnerable. Hadrian built his entire existence on control, on being the strong king who protects everyone and needs no one. But then you walked into his life with your desperate courage and your son who makes him smile. And suddenly, he has something to lose again. It terrifies him." "I'm just his employee," Diana said, but even she didn't believe it anymore. "Diana, he executed a vampire noble to protect you. He holds court dinners with his hand on your back like a claim. Half the staff is taking bets on when he'll finally admit he's in love with you." Her heart stopped. "That's not." "It is, and unless I'm very wrong, you feel the same way." Marcus smiled gently. "I know it's complicated. I know there are 1,000 reasons why it shouldn't work, but I've seen impossible love succeed before. Hadrian's not the monster he thinks he is." Diana wanted to protest, wanted to deny it. But what was the point? "It doesn't matter how I feel. He's made it clear he wants distance. Because he's 800 years old and terrified of caring about someone who will die in a blink of his immortal existence. Not because he doesn't want you." The words haunted Diana for days. She caught Hadrian watching her sometimes, his expression full of longing and regret. She wanted to go to him, to tell him that she didn't care about the complications, that she'd rather have whatever time they could steal than nothing at all. But she had Jamie to think about, and a job to maintain, and she couldn't risk everything on a feeling that might be one-sided, despite what Marcus said. Then came the night of the winter gathering. It was the vampire equivalent of a state dinner, with nobles from all the territories gathering at Hadrian's estate to mark the longest night of the year. Diana had been preparing for weeks, coordinating with staff, ensuring every detail was perfect. The ballroom, she hadn't even known the estate had a ballroom, was decorated in silver and ice blue, with thousands of candles casting flickering light. The vampires arrived in their finery, beautiful and dangerous and utterly inhuman. Diana wore a gown of deep emerald green that made her feel like a princess, and she stood at Hadrian's side as he greeted each guest with the perfect balance of warmth and authority. "You're trembling," Hadrian murmured during a lull in arrivals. "There are over 100 vampires in this house right now. I'm allowed to be nervous. They won't touch you. You're mine, remember?" His hand found hers, squeezing gently. "Stay close to me tonight. Don't leave my side." "I thought you were trying to keep distance between us." His jaw tightened. "I was. I am. I should. But tonight, with so many potential threats in one place, I find I don't care about propriety or complications. I care about keeping you safe, and that means keeping you within reach." Her breath caught. "Hadrian." "Don't," he said softly. "Don't say whatever you're about to say. Not here. Not now. Later when we're alone, we'll talk. I promise." The gathering was magnificent and terrifying in equal measure. Vampires danced with fluid grace, their movements too perfect to be human. Conversations swirled in half a dozen languages, some so old Diana had never heard them before. She stayed at Hadrian's side like a shadow, watching him navigate the complex politics with the ease of someone who'd been doing this for centuries. Lady Seraphine approached with a tall male vampire Diana didn't recognize. "Hadrian, you must meet Lord Dorian. He's just arrived from the European courts." Dorian was handsome in the way all vampires were, with golden hair and dark eyes. He bowed to Hadrian, then turned his attention to Diana. "And who is this exquisite creature?" "Diana Thorne, my estate manager," Hadrian said, and there was steel in his voice. "Estate manager?" Dorian smiled. "Surely this beauty is wasted on administrative work. You should display her properly, Hadrian. I would be honored to escort her for a dance." "She's not available," Hadrian said flatly. "I wasn't asking her employer. I was asking the lady herself." Dorian extended a hand to Diana. "My lady, one dance?" Diana looked at Hadrian, uncertain. His expression was carefully neutral, but she could see the tension in his shoulders. This was a test, she realized. Refuse, and it would be taken as an insult to a visiting noble. Accept and... One dance, she agreed, taking Dorian's hand. Hadrian's eyes flashed red, there and gone so fast she might have imagined it. Dorian led her onto the dance floor with practiced ease. He was a skilled dancer, guiding her through the steps of a waltz that was probably older than her great-grandparents. You are quite the mystery, Miss Thorne. Hadrian has never allowed a human to stand at his side the way he allows you. There are rumors. Rumors are just stories people tell when they don't know the truth. And what is the truth? That I'm in love with your host and terrified of what that means. I'm his employee. Of course, and the sun will rise in the west tomorrow. Dorian spun her elegantly. Be careful, little human. Hadrian may be a good king, but he's still a vampire, still a predator. We don't love the way humans love. We consume, we possess, we destroy what we claim to cherish. It's our nature. You don't know him, Diana said. I've known him for 400 years, watched him build his power on the bones of those who challenged him. He's strong, he's fair by vampire standards, but he's not capable of the kind of love you're hoping for. We can't be. Immortality burns that softness out of us. The song ended. Diana pulled away. Thank you for the dance, Lord Dorian. She found Hadrian in the crowd instantly, as if drawn by a magnetic pull. He was speaking with Lord Victor, but his eyes tracked her across the ballroom, and the moment she reached him, his hand settled on her waist. Are you all right? He asked quietly. Fine. Just tired of being warned away from you by people who think they know what's best for me. His fingers tightened on her waist. What did Dorian say? That vampires can't love. That you'll destroy me. He's probably right, Hadrian said, and the pain in his voice made her chest ache. Diana, Whatever he was about to say was interrupted by a commotion at the entrance. The crowd parted, conversations dying, as a woman entered the ballroom. She was stunning, with hair like spilled ink and eyes like storm clouds, wearing a gown of blood-red silk. Power radiated from her like heat. Queen Morgane, someone whispered. Hadrian's entire body went rigid. Stay behind me, he told Diana, moving to intercept the newcomer. Queen Morgane smiled, revealing fangs. Hadrian. Still playing at civilization, I see. How quaint. You weren't invited, Hadrian said coldly. I don't need invitations. I go where I please. Her gaze swept the room and landed on Diana with interest that made Diana's skin crawl. Is this the human you've been fussing over? The one you executed Lord Cassius's nephew to protect? Lord Cassius's nephew broke my law. He paid the price. Your law? Your territory? Your human pet? Morgane glided closer. You always did have peculiar tastes, Hadrian. But really, a human. With a child, no less. Have you grown so soft in your old age? Leave, Hadrian said, now, or be removed. I think not. I came to deliver a message. The northern courts are displeased with your recent executions. They view your protection of humans as a sign of weakness. There are whispers of challenge, of war. The ballroom had gone utterly silent. Let them come, Hadrian said softly. I've fought wars before. I'll fight them again. Even if it means your precious humans get caught in the crossfire? Morgane's eyes fixed on Diana. She's lovely. It would be a shame if someone decided to make an example of her, to show you what happens when a king forgets he's a monster. Hadrian moved faster than Diana could track, his hand around Morgane's throat, his face transformed into something terrifying. Touch her, and I will burn the northern courts to ash. I will hunt down every vampire who stands against me and tear them apart. I will end your bloodline so thoroughly that in 1,000 years no one will remember your name. Do I make myself clear? Morgane laughed, even with Hadrian's hand crushing her windpipe. Crystal clear, you love her. Oh, this is delicious. The great Hadrian Nightshade, brought low by a fragile human. Hadrian released her with a shove that sent her stumbling. Get out of my house. Morgane straightened her gown, still smiling. As you wish, but this isn't over, Hadrian. You've made yourself vulnerable. Your enemies will exploit that. She looked at Diana one more time. Enjoy your time with him, human. It won't last. It never does. She left in a swirl of red silk. The moment she was gone, the ballroom erupted in whispered conversations. Hadrian turned to Diana, his face still hard with fury. "Go to the East Wing. Get Jamie. Pack your things." "What? Why?" "Because I just made you a target. Because keeping you here now is too dangerous." "I'm not leaving," Diana said. "That's not a request. I'm sending you away for your own protection." "So you can fight a war? So you can face your enemies alone?" She stepped closer, lowering her voice. "I didn't survive the last 2 years just to run when things get hard. I'm staying." "Diana, you don't understand. I understand that you're trying to push me away because you're afraid, but I'm not going. You promised me protection, remember? You said I belonged to you. Well, I'm holding you to that promise." She held his gaze. "Unless you want to admit the real reason you're sending me away." His jaw clenched. "This isn't the time. It's never the time." "When will it be, Hadrian? When I'm dead because you were too afraid to let me stand beside you?" He grabbed her arm, pulling her close. "I'm afraid because I can't lose you," he said roughly. "I'm afraid because in 800 years, I've never felt what I feel when you're near me. I'm afraid because you're human and fragile, and I'm a monster who destroys everything I touch." "You haven't destroyed me," Diana whispered. "You saved me. For now. But Morgaine was right. Loving you makes me weak. No, loving me makes you human." The words hung between them. Hadrian's eyes searched hers, and Diana saw the moment he stopped fighting, saw the walls come down, saw the king become just a man or something close to it who was tired of being alone. "I love you," he said, and the words sounded like they were torn from him. "God help me. I love you. Your strength, your courage, the way you fight for your son, the way you make me want to be more than what I am. I love you, and it terrifies me." Diana's eyes filled with tears. "I love you too. I have for weeks, maybe since that first night when you saw me for who I was, not just a desperate woman begging for scraps." He kissed her then, there in the middle of the ballroom, with 100 vampires watching, and Diana stopped caring about consequences or impossibilities. She kissed him back, tasting wine and something darker, and felt his cool lips warm under hers, felt his hands tighten on her waist like he was afraid she'd disappear. When they finally broke apart, the ballroom had erupted in murmurs. Hadrian ignored them all. "I can't send you away," he said against her mouth. "I should, but I can't. You're right. I need you beside me." "Always," Diana promised. "Then we face what's coming together." "But Diana..." He pulled back enough to look at her seriously. "War's coming. Real war. The northern courts won't let this stand. I need you to promise me that if I tell you to run, you'll run. If I tell you to take Jamie and hide, you'll do it. Can you promise me that?" "I promise," she said, because she could see how desperately he needed to hear it. "Good." He kissed her again, gentler this time. "Now let's finish this gathering and deal with the politics." The rest of the night passed in a blur of careful conversation and strategic positioning. Hadrian made it clear to every vampire in attendance that Diana was under his personal protection, that she was his in ways that went beyond employment, and that any threat to her would be met with absolute retaliation. Some of the nobles looked intrigued, some concerned, but none challenged him. By the time the last guest departed, dawn was threatening the horizon. Hadrian walked Diana back to the East Wing, their hands intertwined. "What happens now?" Diana asked as they reached her door. "Now I prepare for war. I call in allies, shore up defenses, and make sure that when the northern courts come, and they will come, we're ready." He touched her face gently. "And I figure out how to keep the woman I love safe in the middle of a supernatural war." "We'll figure it out together," Diana corrected. "Together," he agreed. Then, hesitantly, "Jamie, does he know about us? About what I am?" "He knows you're special. He doesn't know the details yet, but Hadrian, he adores you. He asks about you every day, wants to show you his drawings, his toys, everything. You're not a monster to him. You're just the man who made sure he has food and a safe place to sleep." Hadrian's expression softened into something achingly vulnerable. "I don't know how to be part of a family. I don't know how to be what you need. You don't have to be anything except yourself. The man who cares enough to protect us, that's enough. That's everything." He kissed her forehead. "Rest. Tomorrow night we begin preparations. But for now, let's pretend the world is just us." Diana slipped into her rooms but couldn't sleep. Her mind raced with everything that had happened, everything that was coming. She checked on Jamie still peacefully asleep, oblivious to the drama of vampire politics, and then stood at the window watching the sun rise over the estate grounds. She was in love with a vampire king. She was about to be caught in the middle of a war between immortal beings. She should be terrified. Instead, she felt strangely at peace. For the first time in years, she wasn't alone. She had Hadrian, who loved her despite every reason not to. She had a home, a purpose, people who cared about them. Whatever was coming, they would face it together. The war preparations began immediately. Victor trained Diana in basic self-defense, teaching her where to strike a vampire to slow them down. Marcus showed her the safe rooms hidden throughout the estate, places reinforced with wards and steel where humans could shelter during an attack. Elise taught her the politics of the vampire courts, who was allied with whom, which ancient feuds might be exploited. Jamie, bless him, adapted with the resilience of childhood. He knew something big was happening, but he trusted that the adults would handle it. Hadrian spent time with him every evening, reading stories or playing simple games, and Diana watched her son fall in love with her vampire king just as she had. "Is Hadrian your boyfriend?" Jamie asked one night at bedtime. Diana blinked. "Would that be okay with you if he was? Is he nice to you?" "Very nice. Does he make you smile?" "Yes." "Then it's okay." Jamie yawned. "I like him. He's not scary like the other vampires." "Well, he's a little scary, but in a good way. Like a superhero." Diana kissed his forehead, her heart full. "Get some sleep, baby." She found Hadrian in his study afterwards, surrounded by maps and correspondence. He looked up when she entered, and his serious expression softened. "Is Jamie asleep?" "Yes." "And he approves of you, by the way. Says you're like a superhero." Hadrian laughed quietly. "If only he knew the truth. The truth is you protect people you care about with everything you have. That's pretty heroic in my book." She moved around the desk and settled into his lap, needing the contact. He wrapped his arms around her immediately. "How bad is it?" "Bad. The northern courts are rallying support. They see my protection of humans as a challenge to the old ways. If they move against me, it won't just be soldiers. They'll target you, Jamie, every human in my territory. They'll make examples. Then we make sure they don't get the chance. I've called in every favor, every alliance I've built over the centuries. If they attack, they'll face not just my court, but half the vampire world. But Diana," he turned her to face him, "if something happens to me, if I fall, don't. Listen, if I fall, Victor has instructions to get you and Jamie to safety, to the western territories where my allies will protect you. There are arrangements, legal documents making you financially independent. You'll be taken care of." "I don't want to be taken care of. I want you alive." "So do I, but I've lived too long not to plan for every possibility." He cupped her face in his cool hands. "You and Jamie are the best thing that's happened to me in 800 years. I won't let you suffer because of what I am." Diana kissed him, pouring everything she felt into it, love and fear and determination. "We're going to win this. We're going to have our happy ending." Such certainty. "I didn't survive this long just to lose now, and neither did you." The attack came 3 weeks later, in the dead of winter. Diana woke to the sound of alarms, a high-pitched wailing that meant the estate's wards had been breached. She bolted from bed, grabbed Jamie from his room, and ran for the nearest safe room the way Victor had taught her. The safe room was in the East Wing's basement, hidden behind a bookcase. Diana got Jamie inside and was about to follow when she heard the screams. Human screams. The staff. She couldn't just hide while people died protecting her. She settled Jamie with his dinosaur and his favorite book. "Stay here, baby. Don't open the door for anyone except me, Hadrian, Victor, or Marcus, understand?" "Mommy, I'm scared." "I know. But you're brave, just like your superhero books. Can you be brave for me?" He nodded, tears streaming down his face. Diana kissed him hard, locked the safe room from the outside, and ran back up the stairs. The main hall was chaos. Vampires fought vampires in a blur of movement too fast for human eyes. Diana saw Victor fighting 3 opponents at once, saw Elise torn and bleeding, saw Marcus defending a cluster of human staff with a silver knife that glowed with some kind of magic. And in the center of it all was Hadrian, a whirlwind of lethal grace. He moved like death itself, elegant and absolute, and vampires fell around him like grain before a scythe. But there were so many, too many. Diana grabbed a silver candlestick from a table and swung it at a vampire lunging for one of the maids. The silver burned him, making him shriek. He turned on her with fury in his eyes, but Diana didn't freeze. She swung again, catching him across the face, buying enough time for the maid to run. Then Hadrian was there, tearing the vampire away from her and ending him with brutal efficiency. "I told you to hide. I couldn't just safe room, now." He shoved her toward the stairs just as a massive vampire, Lord Dorian, she realized with shock, stepped into view. "The human who's stolen your heart," Dorian said. "Queen Morgane sends her regards." Hadrian positioned himself between Diana and Dorian. "You're working with the Northern Courts? They made me an excellent offer. Your territory in exchange for your head, and as a bonus, I get to break your pet." Dorian's smile was vicious. "I did warn her, Hadrian. Told her you'd destroy her. I just didn't mention I'd be helping. You'll die for this. Perhaps, but you'll watch her bleed first." Dorian moved like lightning. Hadrian met him head-on, and they collided with the force of a car crash. Diana stumbled back, watching in horror as they fought. They were too evenly matched, both ancient, both powerful. Hadrian was stronger, but Dorian was vicious, going for killing blows without honor. She had to do something, had to help. Diana looked around frantically and spotted Victor's fallen silver knife. She grabbed it, felt it burn her palm, and waited for an opening. It came when Dorian managed to pin Hadrian against the wall, going for his throat. Diana didn't think. She just moved, driving the silver blade into Dorian's back with everything she had. Dorian screamed, releasing Hadrian. He turned on Diana with death in his eyes, but Hadrian recovered instantly. He grabbed Dorian's head and twisted, and Diana heard the sickening crack of a spine snapping. Dorian fell, didn't get back up. Hadrian pulled the silver knife from Dorian's back and tossed it aside, then grabbed Diana's burned hand. "You're hurt." "I'm fine. Is it over?" "Look around." Diana did. The fighting had stopped. Hadrian's vampires stood victorious over the Northern Court's forces. Bodies littered the floor, some already turning to ash, some still twitching. It was carnage. "We won," she whispered. "We won!" Hadrian pulled her against him, holding her so tightly she couldn't breathe. "You were supposed to hide. I couldn't let them kill you. You could have died. So could you." He pulled back enough to look at her, and his eyes were wild. "Don't ever do that again. Don't ever risk yourself for me." "Too bad. That's what you do when you love someone." Diana touched his face. "I need to get Jamie." They retrieved Jamie together, and Diana's son launched himself into her arms, crying. She held him and let Hadrian wrap them both in his embrace, standing in the blood-spattered hallway like an island of safety in a sea of death. The aftermath took days to sort through. Hadrian executed the surviving Northern Court attackers and sent a message to Queen Morgane that any further attacks would be met with total war. Morgane, apparently, decided discretion was the better part of valor and withdrew her forces, sending a formal apology that everyone knew was meaningless, but politically necessary. The estate was repaired. The dead were mourned. And slowly, life returned to something resembling normal. Diana's hand healed from the silver burn, leaving a faint scar across her palm. Hadrian kissed it every night, a reminder of what she'd done for him. "I've been thinking," he said one evening as they sat together in the study, Jamie asleep upstairs, "about the future." "What about it?" "You're human. You age. In 50 years, you'll be an old woman, and I'll still look like this." He gestured at himself. "In 80 years, you'll be gone, and I'll still be here. I can't. The thought of existing without you is unbearable." Diana's heart sank. "Are you ending this?" "No, never. I'm asking if you'd consider another option." She stared at him. "You mean becoming like me, a vampire? It's not an easy transformation. It's painful, and there's no guarantee it will take. But if it does, we'd have eternity together. You and Jamie when he's old enough. If he chooses, it could be part of this world permanently." Diana's mind reeled. Become a vampire, live forever, watch her son grow up and give him the choice to do the same. It was insane, it was impossible, it was everything she wanted. I need time to think about it, she said carefully. It's not just my life, it's Jamie's future too. Of course. Take all the time you need, but Diana… He pulled her close. Know that whatever you choose, I love you. If you stay human, I'll cherish every moment we have. If you choose transformation, I'll be with you through every second of the change. You are mine, and I am yours, in this life and whatever comes after. Diana kissed him, tasting forever on his lips. I love you too. 3 months later, Diana made her choice. She chose transformation, chose eternity, chose the beautiful monster who had given her and her son a home. The change was agony. 3 days of fire in her veins and her body remaking itself on a cellular level. But Hadrian never left her side. He held her through the pain, whispered promises of the future, and on the 4th day when she woke with crimson eyes and fangs and impossible strength, he kissed her like she was the most precious thing in all his centuries. Jamie adapted with the resilience of childhood. His mother was different now, pale and beautiful and strong, but still his mother. Still the woman who tucked him in every night and made him laugh. And when he was older, when he was 18 and could make his own choice, Hadrian would offer him the same option. But for now, he was just a happy child growing up in a house full of people who loved him. Diana took to her new existence with surprising ease. She learned to navigate vampire politics with the same practical determination she'd once applied to surviving poverty. She stood at Hadrian's side as his queen formally acknowledged after a ceremony that involved a lot of old rituals and blood oaths, and helped him build a court that was fair and strong. And at night, when the estate was quiet and Jamie was asleep and the world was just the two of them, Diana would curl against Hadrian's chest and listen to the silence where his heartbeat should be, and feel perfectly, completely at peace. Any regrets? Hadrian asked one such night, his fingers trailing through her now white hair. Not a single one. You? Only that I didn't find you sooner, that we wasted 800 years before you walked through my door. Diana smiled, revealing her fangs. Then we'd better make up for lost time. We have eternity for that. Good, because I plan to spend every second of it loving you. And she did. They both did. The single mother who had begged for any job to feed her son, and the vampire king who had handed her the whole estate and then, eventually, his ancient heart. Together they built something neither had thought possible, a family, a love that transcended the boundaries of human and monster, and a forever that was just beginning. The story could have ended there, in that perfect moment of peace and love. But life, even immortal life, was never quite that simple, and Diana wouldn't have wanted it to be. There were still challenges ahead, still politics to navigate and threats to defend against. But whatever came, they would face it the way they'd faced everything else. Together, fierce and unafraid. Years turned into decades. Jamie grew into a thoughtful young man who eventually chose transformation and joined his mother and Hadrian in eternity. The three of them became a family unit that the vampire world regarded with respect and, occasionally, envy. Hadrian had his queen and his heir. Diana had the security and love she'd once only dreamed of, and Jamie had parents who would literally live forever to embarrass him. The Nightshade Estate became legendary, a place where humans and vampires coexisted with unprecedented harmony. Diana's policies and Hadrian's power combined to create a territory that prospered even as other courts struggled with the changing modern world. They were proof that love between species was possible, that monsters and humans could build something beautiful together. On quiet evenings, Diana would sometimes think back to that rainy night when she'd walked up to these gates with $17 and a desperate prayer. She'd been looking for a job, for survival, for any scrap of hope. Instead, she'd found a home, a family, and a love that literally lasted forever. Hadrian would find her in those moments of reflection and pull her close, understanding without words where her mind had gone. "No regrets?" he'd ask, the same question he'd been asking for decades. "Not a single one," she'd answer, the same response she'd given 100 times before. Because it was true. Every terrifying step, every impossible choice, every moment of fear and doubt had led her here to this man, this life, this perfect forever. She'd been a single mother begging for any job to feed her son. The Vampire King had handed her the whole estate, and then, slowly and impossibly, he'd given her his heart as well. That was worth more than all the centuries ahead combined. That was everything. The moon rose over the Nightshade Estate, painting everything in silver light. Inside, a family gathered for dinner, 2 vampires and their son, who would soon join them in immortality. They laughed and talked and loved each other with the intensity of people who knew exactly how precious their bond was. And if the shadows sometimes whispered threats, if other courts sometimes looked at their happiness with jealousy, it didn't matter. They had each other. They had forever. They had won. The end was really just another beginning, the way all the best love stories go. And theirs would continue, through centuries and millennia, an eternal testament to the power of desperate courage and unlikely love. A single mother and a vampire king, defying every rule and expectation to build something beautiful. They had started with nothing, she with her poverty and fear, he with his lonely immortality. Together, they had everything, and they would keep it, protect it, nurture it through all the ages to come. Because that's what you did when you found your forever person. You held on tight and you never let go, not for anything, not ever.